Hi, my name is Bianca Lopez. I'm the co-founder of Tail and a proud founder and member of Open Banking Week. And I'm super excited to bring one of the most hyped companies and a brilliant human, originally from Poland, speaking to me from Singapore right now, I believe, the managing director of Kraken. Jakub, hi. Thanks for talking
Thanks,
to me.
Bianca, yes, thank you very much for having me. Very happy to speak with you about everything fintech, everything open banking, and also what we're doing at Kraken.
Amazing. So before we go to the company and open banking and all the interesting things around digital currencies in the digital economy space, I usually like to get to know the human I'm talking to. So tell me a little bit about your story. You've been around some pretty big names like Revolut, but how did you get into this space?
I think it's funny because it's all kind of a chain of events for me. So I actually started my career in a copycat of Amazon in Southeast Asia. At that point of time, I was fresh out of business school, and obviously 99% of my class wanted to go into either investment banking or consulting. And this is also something that I considered. And at the same time, I was actually writing a master thesis about financing of early stage startups. And at that point of time, I was also researching a company in Europe called Rocket Internet that was literally taking ideas from the US, copying them, hiring a team of people mostly from Europe, and to launch the entity in different jurisdictions in LATAM, but also in Southeast Asia. I think these were the two regions. So yeah, I kind of thought that that's a cool idea, and I thought that why not just apply there. A couple of interviews later, they just told me, well, would you be okay to jump on a plane to go to Malaysia tomorrow so you can start working? And I thought if you're 20 something, I thought that's pretty cool. And I thought
that's like a rocket ride. You're like, okay, I'm totally ready.
Yeah, I just thought that I'm going to regret more not hopping on that plane than not being an investment banker. So it kind of all started from there, where I started really enjoying building companies, even though it wasn't e-commerce.
Yeah.
And then I actually was experienced the problems within financial services firsthand. So after Singapore, I moved to Hong Kong. I was working crazy hours in Hong Kong, and banking system in Hong Kong, it maybe still is 10 years behind everyone else. So I had to use my Singapore card to pay for everything in Hong Kong, which just cost me a fortune with the FX spreads, ATM fees, everything all together. Having a financial background, experiencing building companies, then I thought, well, maybe this whole fintech hype that was 2014, 2015, there's actually something to it because I'm experiencing the problem myself. Being a Polish guy in Hong Kong, using a Singapore card, paying a fortune for every single transaction and the conversion fees. So this is how I learned about Revolut. Fast forward, I thought that, well, I like building companies and there's this problem that I'm experiencing. Seems like a good company to join. So pinged the CEO on LinkedIn, and yeah, a couple of interviews later, I was on my flight to London, and this is how my journey with fintech started. Actually, very painful start when it comes to really experiencing the problem that at that point of time Revolut was solving, which was the international transfers, payment with your card abroad, and paying ridiculous FX fees. So yeah, I thought, why not be a part of a solution to that? And this is how it all kind of started.
When you first realized that the problem was about people, did you have that connection before when you were because I often find I sometimes still talk to my friends. We have similar backgrounds in education, at least. And I still have friends that work in investment banking. And it kind of is, a few of them are turning the corner, but a lot of them are still far removed from really realizing this isn't a hype. Was that kind of what the mentality shift was for you when you look at how, at least now in Kraken, the focus is a lot on the people using the platform, on making this easy? And was that kind of always been kind of inherent in you? And you think a little bit of why you made the decision to now be at Kraken?
I think everything evolves. I think all these things, and I think it will evolve as well. And I think being customer centric kind of strikes you whenever you're working for a consumer company, which I worked at Lazada. Amazon, I think, motto is that they're customer obsessed and customer first. And this is something that strikes you, is that you're building a product for the people. You're not in services business. just like consulting or investment banking, but you're actually building something for people, and it actually makes a big difference on how the product looks like. So so in general, I think this is something that was a very good lesson. I think in general, like online business 101, starting from e-commerce at that point of time, so early 2012, 2013 was a good start to understand online business, because everything is e-commerce. At the end of the day, you're just selling things online, whatever it's a product or service. E-commerce is just a core. But whatever Revolut does or whatever Kraken does, we're all selling. We're all kind of e-commerce companies. We're just selling different things. So I think the basics that I got from that and learning of being customer obsessed is something that stayed with me. I was very happy to see that Revolut thought about it in exactly the same way, and Kraken thinks about it exactly the same way, where you just want to create this best user experience that is out there. And whenever you have the best product and you're competitive in pricing, you're always going to win. So this is also something that is the same for Revolut, same for Kraken. And it's also good that our visions are aligned on how to really build successful companies in the long term. So this is how I would think about it.
For people out there that don't know what Kraken is, I'm going to take a step back before we go there. As the world is getting further and further digitized, we know and hear the buzz around things like digital currencies. We all have seen the hype around, and the reality around the world of Bitcoin, Ethereum. For people that don't really know this space, how would you describe the opportunity and perhaps the dynamics around the digital asset space?
Sure. So I think the way that I thought about cryptocurrencies in general, and the reason why I wanted to join crypto was our Revolut, seeing that there's still a lot of things that financial institutions that Revolut was working with. There's still a better way to do a lot of different things when it comes to payments, when it comes to money transfers. I mean, if we just take a step back and if we think about e-commerce, and if we think about how life looked like before e-commerce, when everything was retail, and then e-commerce changed that everything suddenly becomes online. I think when it comes to financial services, we are seeing this similar transition where if you think about payments, everything was paid in cash. Where we are right now, that is already changing. We have companies that are becoming digitized, so digital banks, neobanks like Revolut, etc. Where we're all heading ultimately is basically putting everything on all the transactions or everything financial services on a blockchain. And this is where we're heading towards crypto. So when it comes to like really simplifying what digital assets are, is that whenever you have a string of zeros and ones, which makes it a binary code, this makes the whole digital part of digital assets, and assets meaning that someone has a right to something. Either it's a store of value, or it's a right to basically exchange or a mean of exchange. And this is what digital assets are. And cryptocurrencies are basically a subset of digital assets that are basically more focused on the store of value and exchange part. Other things that are not considered crypto and are considered digital assets are, for example, NFTs. So we've seen recently that a big hype about the way that people are Banksy is basically or someone bought a Banksy image, destroyed it, and then sold it as NFT. It's not made to be a mean of exchange. It's just a way to basically put a physical assets into a string of zero and ones, and digitize the ownership of a particular asset. But it's not a mean to store value, and it's not a mean to basically exchange value. So in a really simple terms, digital assets are trying to put the right or ownership in this string of zeros and ones, and cryptocurrencies are a way for us to basically exchange or store value, which is very similar to, that's why they're called currencies, because they're very similar to British pounds and US dollars, with the difference that there's not a centralized entity that is actually controlling it. So this is the philosophical aspect of it, that many people like cryptocurrencies because it's peer-to-peer and is decentralized compared to a centralized institution that actually has control over the network of and supply of all the assets. So in a very simple terms, this is basically how I would define it. And we can see that this seems like, if you look at other industries, this just seems like a natural evolution of where things are going to be going. We still do not know whether it's going to be 100% Bitcoin for payments or if it's going to be 100% Ethereum when it comes to, the building the applications, the new wave of applications. But we know that there's something into it. And this is what drove me to this industry, that I'm 100% sure that this is the future. And we are yet to see exactly which are going to be the most successful projects within digital assets and cryptocurrencies per se.
I couldn't agree more with you. I love your explanation. And I try usually to explain to people that are outside of the space, is like, think about it. A lot of things, we do have digital representations. Like, think back of how we had the Sims and we had these things and we live in these parallel worlds. We're constructing them all the time. The financial industry is just finding a way of hopefully regulating some of that, providing some technology to safeguard that environment of trade that effectively has been in humanity since, well, we've existed, and it's taken a lot of form. So I'm glad to hear from somebody else who has a fancier title than me to say that this is the future. I've been trying to tell banks that this isn't a nice to have or an innovation project. This is just a way that a lot of things are going to happen in your balance sheet. So are you ready or are you not?
Yeah.
When you look at the readiness, and Kraken operates with a global mindset, there's a lot of regulatory and efficiency that still needs to be put in the system for this to truly be, as it sounds, digital and seamless. We all know that the basic sort of parameters of economics around supply and demand work around miners and work around pricing, and dynamic pricing is already a reality in this market. But what are some of the challenges that not only Kraken, but broadly you see ahead of this new open finance or digital economy? Maybe you can also tell me what your preference is on the name, even though we both just agree it is the future. Everything will be digital and physical. So maybe we won't need to call it eventually.
So I think when it comes to challenges that I think are going to be overcome really soon, is whenever we actually see governments that are going to be issuing their own cryptocurrencies or centrally backed currencies. And I think this is going to be a wave that after initial countries, which it's been already publicly announced, some governments said that they're going to be issuing their own currencies, digital currencies. I think this is just going to be a domino effect that it's going to be putting even further vote of confidence for crypto in general. I think we already have use cases when it comes to Bitcoin. More and more established financial institutions are using it as a mean of storing value, and also companies that are just like Tesla or MicroStrategy, that are already understanding the value of it, that they're thinking that it makes sense to basically put some part of your assets into Bitcoin to preserve the value that they've already got. This is just one example of a use case that we are already seeing. I think the second part is, as I mentioned, with the central backed digital currencies by big governments. So this is going to be the second one. And I think what we're going to see is whenever it actually gets adopted within the wider space of public listed companies, everyone is going to be much more familiar with the concept of basically either storing value, of transferring value, exchanges, payments, or international transfers. That is going to be normal for people to basically use this technology, because ultimately I don't think in many cases this is going to be changing or adding additional service of what we're already doing. We're still going to be sending money, we're still going to be paying our friends, we're still going to pay for goods and services. I think what this really does is just to make things way more efficient behind the scenes. So whenever we're discussing blockchain, which is one of the most hyped out words right now, it's actually a backend technology of how things can be running in a more smooth way. So for me, I wouldn't see it more as challenges. I see it as normal growing pains that in many cases we're still not yet there, but there are already first examples of companies or first example of governments that are really adopting the technology for running the country or running the company in a more efficient way.
When you look at regulatory regimes like open banking, the whole reason why we're coming together here, you're speaking to me from a country that has been really fast forward moving and understanding the importance of creating an international sandbox and advancing some of the standards around Singapore. But this is popping up all over the world. And you and I briefly before I hit the record button and another time talked about the opportunity also in LATAM. I totally hear you on the fact that the serious players, the bank, the central bank, the traditional large enterprises that are considered successful, once they enter the space, this kind of legitimizes and brings a level playing field. One of the things that I wonder around the legislation, and I wonder around the opportunity, is when you look at the spreads around this market, they're like being back in the 80s in investment banking. There's a lot of room because efficiency creates value. Do you see a future where if the legislation were to be successful and everybody's on the same playing field, that this becomes about providing what to the client? What is the value? What is the centricity then?
Yeah, I think in general, and also speaking from Singapore, I can see firsthand where well-written regulation always works for both sides. I think whenever the companies are innovating with new products and services, it is in the role of financial regulators is to ensure the safety of funds and safety of the services that the entities are providing. So Singapore is a good example when it comes to, for example, payments, and when it comes to crypto, of really having this well-adjusted regulation that it's balancing innovation and balancing mitigation of risks. I think there will be many more regulators that are going to be following what Singapore is doing in this regard. My personal view is this balanced approach is best, because if we go into too much regulation, that's going to kill the innovation aspect of it. However, whenever you do full deregulation, I think there are still a lot of risks that speaking from a consumer side, I just want to ensure whenever I'm, for example, in Singapore, that my money is safe. Because it is kept at an institution that there's some oversight over it. So this is my personal view about how I think about regulation and innovation. I think there's an art and science to it. I think Singapore has done a really good job in balancing these two things. And yeah, we'll definitely see more and more similar developments around the world. And this is exactly the same thing when it comes to, let's say, Europe, PSD2 and open banking, when there is a framework that tries to capture all the implications of companies that are actually providing these services, ensuring the safety of its users. So I think a well-written regulation works best for both sides, for companies, because it sets out a clear framework of what is needed and in order to be providing this type of services, and it gives peace of mind to consumers, especially when it comes to financial services where your money and many times your savings are involved, that these things are safe, and that there are some mitigants around safeguarding, mitigants about technology risks that have to be met in order for company to be actually functioning. So well, I'm very happy being in Singapore that the ecosystem and framework has been developed. When you mentioned sandboxes for companies, I think it's a great idea, and I think whenever some first initial use cases of why well-written regulation is very important will happen when we see from Europe or from Singapore, from other countries, superstar companies that are going to be appearing because of this and flourishing. I think many countries will see, okay, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of business to be made if we do it right, which will create a use case of why it has to be done, and it has to be done in a good way.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it brings up a topic that I know you and I have a shared passion for, which is around identity. Other than an obvious need for a serious conversation around identity that has to happen in a global level. There's some talks around this, as some countries have realized that this isn't just an open banking world. Australia is talking about open data framework. A lot of companies are talking about embedded finance as a reality. What other technologies or kind of tectonic plates? I called identity quite foundational. If we can't figure that out, the identity of me and my things, whether they're going to be my NFTs in the future or everything else, we're going to keep having the bad guys kind of harming humanity at large. What other things that you get excited about that you think are either an opportunity or something that you at Kraken are actively looking at figuring it out how to solve so we can unlock this value of what becomes possible when this is solved?
So I think you've touched on identity, and that's a great topic. I think also coming back to Singapore, in Singapore, it literally takes a couple of clicks working with the government database that it's called MyInfo for financial institutions to actually work together and be able to tap into this database and verify its users. And it's a great example of how you can actually not sacrifice of quality of your compliance and quality of your checks that you're doing, and still be able to provide a great user experience. Because on two other spectrums that you can go wrong is that either you provide a great user experience and you're not doing your job well when it comes to identifying your users, or it takes you days to verify your users and you do the right job. But we as millennials want to do things fast, and if there's an app that we want to use, if it takes more than 5 seconds, you've already lost my interest. So I think in Singapore has solved it in a way that there's a government database with great APIs that you can plug in and a team behind it, where you're able to actually identify users from Singapore in a matter of seconds, and this government is kept up to date. And you're able to still plug to it in a really easy way. So this is one thing when it comes to mind, that it's really done right. I think what I'm most excited about when it comes to new developments in general is the whole area of decentralized finance. I think it blows my mind that right now there are solutions that are being built that allow you to take out a loan or put money in that is no intermediary between borrowers and people that are actually lending funds. And what makes it great is that everything is basically introduced through an algorithm or through a protocol, and that it's automatically adjusting the rates of lending. So for me, we knew that lending has been an industry that it's a couple of 100 years old, and there's always a bank or some other lender institution that was in between two parties, a party that was depositing funds and the party that was taking out loans. Right now, there are actually solutions that are being built to completely decentralize that, and they're able to provide this service just through an algorithm and through a protocol that is basically putting the rules on how this should be done. I think this is going to be definitely changing the way that we're thinking about the financial services in general, especially in times where previously the role of a financial institution was always to be trusted in the first place. You wanted to ensure that your funds are protected, and you wanted to trust the institution that you're facing. Right now, you're able to do it in a more efficient way, more in a peer-to-peer manner, everything on a protocol without anyone interfering in this. So I think we're very early when it comes to adoption of this technology, and this is something that I'm very excited about when it comes to exchanging means of exchange, or when it comes to means of depositing and lending funds. I think the whole concept of DeFi is we're still early, and it's definitely going to be one of the top subsectors of the financial industry that is going to be growing, in my opinion, the fastest in the next few years.
I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of countries, especially where Open Banking Week was born, which is Brazil, has a lot of opportunity for that to happen. Not only talking about the efficiency that technology brings, but a cost of acquisition that sometimes is prohibiting, as you said, the parameters of lending, yeah, on even just credibility alone, or the data that was previously available to build propensity models that make sense. Today have evolved, yeah, so much. How come we haven't gotten there? And I hope that some of these legislations, as you said, don't stop and stomp innovation, but allow it to happen in a safe, ethical manner where we bring conversations around privacy and awareness of consumers. And, yeah, I agree with you that this is not just a hype. This is actually a change. And when you look at the facts and the costs and the future, it makes a ton of sense on that evolution. Yeah. When you look at Kraken, what are you most excited about for its future? I have to admit, I often find myself thinking, will there be stock exchanges that are sovereignty based in the future, or will they reside as the digital stock exchanges or value exchanges of the future? What is some of what the future holds? Everybody out there has been watching pretty closely. Coinbase IPO, some recent developments in the market. What do you get excited about being the MD of Kraken?
I think what I'm excited about the most, and there are plenty of things that I'm excited when it comes to the future of Kraken, and maybe referring to some of the points that you've just mentioned. I'm sure that this is just a beginning of the things that we can be providing, and the future can be looking exactly like you've mentioned. When it comes to what Kraken is already working on, which I think it's extremely innovative, and we're going to be the first ones to actually develop something like this, is Kraken Bank. So we were the first crypto exchange that has gotten a bank charter in the US, and we're in the midst of operationalizing our banking operations. So whenever you see the development of companies within the crypto space that are trying to do what the incumbents were doing, and incumbents trying to do what the crypto exchanges are already doing, you see these two worlds are actually molding. I'm very happy being at Kraken that is at the forefront of this innovation, and I'm extremely excited for us to actually be able to ship our banking product soon.
Are you going to get into a bit of the socio token hype? Do you see that being a bit of the future, that perhaps if client centricity is important and this becomes more than a hype, that Kraken would look into?
Well, I think when it comes to these type of tokens, I think why not? I think we as an exchange, we definitely need to think about the security of our users, and we need to think about ensuring that the things that are being listed on Kraken are actually legit, and there's a team behind it, and there's a technology that is being understood. So I think for us, we whenever there are interesting things, and there will be more interesting things that are going to be happening soon. So our role is to ensure as a company that we are able to provide as many interesting projects to our clients as possible. And there'll be many different types of tokens and digital assets that Kraken will be listing in the future. And what is most important is that there's actually more and more people that get involved in building all these great companies and great projects. It feels like if becoming listed on a exchange, and seeing the success of many other companies that are doing that in projects also fuels more people that are very smart to build their own projects and to get listed, and it's just creating a brand new economy and subset of economy where people are able to build great things. So it's great, to be in the middle of it and see all these great folks working on great projects that are then have the ability to go and get listed on a crypto exchange like Kraken.
I wish that to happen as fast as possible. And honestly, congratulations. That's amazing. I would love to book a time to find out what you're going to do when you build a bank and how we can potentially work together. I'm going to ask you a question of something that I often reflect on. I'm a super curious person, and so are you. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the space. We probably wouldn't have had kindred spirit conversations if we here at Open Banking Week. But I think we failed at large, and I put me in the bucket because I'm in the industry, at explaining to the average person and human what money is, or how the financial services sector worked. And I often, perhaps too optimistic or naive or idealistic, think we have a responsibility, me, you, all the people building all this new cool stuff, to find a way of making sure we don't do that again. That the average person around the world actually understands that the technology can make their lives better, that can allow value to be created where it wasn't created before, because maybe the inner economics of it and the cost per client or product didn't make sense, or the metrics around that human's credibility weren't taken into account in a data or questionnaire way. How do we do that, Jacob? How do we make sure that this new world of open finance, of actually decentralized, is inclusive and is comprehensive? Because let's face it, the average person hears binary or code, they go like this, and maybe they run the other way. So how do we do this differently? How does the responsibility that the financial services sector of creating, withholding, exchanging value explains to people what this is all about? Like, are we going to we already have cybersecurity insurance, but how do we do this differently?
the only answer to this is education. And I think this is also something that we at Kraken feel very strongly about. That's why there's a ton of content about what crypto is, what particular digital asset that Kraken is listing are. So we're ensuring that we are giving as much information possible to our users about cryptocurrencies, as we can. So this is one thing. What we're also doing is we actually are also issuing industry reports on a frequent basis that are basically talking about the new updates within the industry, just to ensure that there's a very logical pattern to follow when it comes to really understanding what digital assets are and what the new upcoming trends in the industry are as well. So I think this is one thing. But to your point, I think you're right when it comes to say, in general, people don't have too much understanding what really money is. But if I think about money in general, I think basic understanding is definitely required. But money is a utility. It's just a mean of doing something. We probably don't spend too much time, at least most of us, really understanding how electricity works. We know that we need it, and we know that it's there if we click a button. I don't think financial services should be any different. I think there should be a basic level of understanding, especially if there's a massive change. Just like with electricity, of where the actual source of energy is coming, it's good to understand the difference between renewable energy and fossil fuels, for example. I think it's a change that it's exactly the same that is happening right now when it comes to money, to where we were when it comes to paper money, and right now with the new digital economy that is going from e-money to basically digital currencies and digital assets. So in general, basic level understanding, which will come from schools, but also for curious people when it comes to companies that should have the responsibility to really educate their audience. And I'm happy to say that Kraken is definitely having that as one of the top priorities for the company. I think this is, the mission of the company in general is to accelerate the adoption of cryptocurrency. And this is something that our leadership is extremely visionary in having a very long-term approach towards digital assets, is ensuring that we're actually educating the audience about how we see the future and what is actually happening right now. But on the other hand, I think people should understand, but there's, as a consumer, I just want many things to work when it comes to money. I want to be able, if I'm able to send anyone a message within milliseconds, I think anything that has to do with money should follow. And until we are not there, we still have a lot of things that will have to work. So this is just what we're trying to achieve with digital assets and with cryptocurrencies and with tokens, is just to do all these things when it comes to ownership, when it comes to means of exchange, to do it in a much more effective manner using cryptocurrencies and using blockchain technology.
I hope for that future to happen. I'm excited to hear that you see the importance, and we share another passion around education and around the role. And I also agree with you. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, my bank. They just wake up in the morning excited, or maybe a little bit worried about what's ahead for their day. And I think it's our role, just like technology did, to just make that happen and make sure that we have trust and ethics built into these systems, so people don't have to think about it, but we don't wake up with a surprise of, oh yeah, we destroyed half forest to make this happen, or we harmed some other people. Some basic, being a good human rules apply here.
That's right.
Jakub, it was incredible to hear a little bit about your story, a bit about your passion and some of the opportunity that you see in the space. I am excited to hear once you're up and running in the US. And what the future holds there in a country that has been a little bit lagging around the open banking. But if you kind of looked at it, the US has been operating in an open market economy for way before screen scraping was in the mouth of people in Europe. So I think you'll have an incredible opportunity there. And I can't wait for you to come down south and be in LATAM, hopefully for our next year event. And we actually get to meet in person, which would be great for not only me, but the open banking community to hear more about your insights. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks to you as well for having me. It was a great conversation.